Hi, you guys. Welcome. Welcome. I'm so excited about tonight. So, we're going to go ahead and get started, you guys. I cannot wait to get into this conversation. This is going to be such a wonderful conversation that we're going to have on tonight. So, welcome. Welcome to the Heal Black Joy podcast presents Soul Food and War. I am Lola Troy, the host and the curator of Heal Black Joy, the learning platform for our community to heal our Black joy with tangible and attainable programs for the mind, body, soul, relationships, and businesses. And in today's conversation, we are talking about be bold, be brave, be confident with courage. This season is totally about being bold, being brave, being confident in our skin and in our fashion with courage. It is an ode and a dedication to my life coach who we lost back in July, Latanya Tibbs. So this is dedicated to her. And I want to get into who our guest is on tonight. My guest is Nesha Frazier. She is the founder of Courage Hackers, a training and development firm for small business owners. Her mission is to help remove the barriers to success, freedom, and confidence for service-based entrepreneurs, mainly women. Nesha believes success is a self-love journey achieved only after releasing your excuses of unworthiness. She trailblazes a way to show what's possible when you have the audacity to dream big and the courage to realize these dreams without proof. Nesha is also a United States Air Force veteran. She's also a married mother of four. Welcome, our Courage Hackers guest, Miss Nesha Frazier. How are you, lady?
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So I wanted to get into be bold, be brave, be confident with courage. I know that your business is called Courage Hackers. I know that you have to be bold, you have to be brave, you have to be confident to being able to juggle all the things that you juggle in your life as a wife, as a mother, as a woman, as a business owner. What does confidence with courage look like for you as a woman, a Black woman, a wife, a mom of four children, beautiful, beautiful Black babies, and as a business owner? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, confidence is one of those things that you don't I don't think you innately know what it means, especially as you inherit more titles or I used to be a Division II athlete, so I had a confidence about myself as an athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the strength of my body. And then I had babies. And as you know, that's going to disrupt some things in your body. It's going to challenge how you attach your confidence, because it's maybe contingent upon your body and you didn't know this. So at this stage in life, I came to realize that I could not allow my confidence to be contingent on anything at all, right? Like
Mm.
it really had to be a little closer to worth and worthiness. And that challenged me to think, how worthy do I actually feel, right? Like how I show up for everyone else. Do I feel like I'm worthy to show up for myself that
Mm.
way? So confidence for me is something I had to challenge myself to not attach it to these things and associate it with these things that
Mm-hmm.
were they were fixed, or they weren't fixed. They were conditional, and they had ebbs and flows, and it's exhausting to attach your sense of confidence and worth to things that you have no control over. So it means to me it's this faith that you have in yourself that no matter what, you'll figure it out. Like this example being now, I just had this, the biggest wins and then some huge blows in a matter of 24 hours, right? And you can't let that make you think that uh, you're not capable of moving forward. So as a mom, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, I kind of have and operate under the same foundation of that worthiness, that same level of not associating or attaching my sense of worthy or confidence to outcomes that I have no control of. Instead, looking inward and saying, Nesha, you know you can figure this out. You know you're deserving. You know you're competent. You know you're all these things, and singing that to myself as often as possible. So they're kind of connected for me, all of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. I know for me, when I think about confidence for me, like when you were talking about ebbs and flows, I was thinking about the ebbs and flows of my life. And there were times in my life where I didn't feel confident. I might have been confident in one area of my life, but I
Yeah.
then wasn't confident in another area of my life. And then, as you go along, you also figure it out. You also gain that confidence from wherever it comes from. It's just like with me, it's an inner knowing that regardless, I'm going to be okay. I'm going
Yep.
to figure it out. I'm going to be able to push through. And there's a lot of bravery in that. I think a lot of times my friend Donald Morton says, shout out to him. He always says you find, your strength and your bravery in your adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
Mm-hmm.
never when we are on the upswing of things. It's always in those valley moments that you find that bravery. And I think confidence is built from the bravery,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah, it's
you go
100% navigating through it. Shout out to your friend Donald. I tell you, I subscribe to Jay-Z's philosophy on that with failure for sure. And he talks about that at length, of failure and how much more he resonates with failure than his successes, for that very reason that you just mentioned.
yeah.
There's something that's like, I say BFE all the time, this big faith energy that comes from being able to see a hard thing and not back away from it. You know what I mean? Like to see something that seems impossible and navigate through it. There's something about knowing that no one believes you can do something and yet you did it. There's a big faith energy about yourself that it just hits different, and when you navigate through it. And I 100% align with that idea that it's the tough times, it's the hard things, you know.
Can you think of a time where you developed the confidence? Was
Mhm.
there a particular time in your life where you weren't confident, but you developed that confidence and then you're like, you know what, I got this. Can you
If
tell me about
if
that?
I'm totally honest with you, I
Yeah.
look back at my resume and I am so proud of my life, and not professional resume. I mean life resume. I'm so
Mhm.
proud of the things I've achieved and accomplished. But if I'm totally honest with you, Lola, they weren't the result of confidence. They were the result of chutzpah and audacity and resentment and all these other things. They weren't confidence. And it wasn't until truly the past like 2 years that I could say I really started to have confidence in myself, in my voice, more
Mm.
specifically. And kind of going back to the root of what I mentioned before, is this worthiness. There's something about the environment that you may have been, if you look at yourself like the foundation that you were reared in, and the
Mhm.
foundation that I was brought up in didn't make me think there was anything special about the way my resilience or my courage or my grit, because that's what was required of almost anyone to survive those conditions, right? So nothing about that felt unique. So I
Mm.
never considered that to be a part of something that made me confident. It wasn't until I gave myself some permissions to disrupt and permission to undo and to dream outside of boxes that I never subscribed to begin with, that I started to develop this confidence. But like I said, it's never been the case. And a great example for that, the largest one that I'll tell you, I'm almost on 1 year as a full-time entrepreneur. And
Mm.
while I've been an entrepreneur in some capacity, side hustles for over a decade, uh, I negotiated, not quit, negotiated my way out of my full-time corporate career in a very favorable way. And I almost didn't ask for it. I almost allowed the doubt of how I wanted things to look for myself to come in. And I woke up that morning and I just kept hearing this voice that said, "You have not because you ask not, Nisha.
Mm.
This is the year you tell yourself, you know what you want, you know who you are, give it permission to breathe and see what happens, and just see what happens." And so that's probably the most recent example, but it's a relatively newer thing for me, believe it or not, true confidence.
Okay. what does giving yourself permission look like? Because
Mm.
I know in our community, a lot of times we feel like we don't have a choice, right? We just
Mhm.
accept things as they are, as we are, whatever's going on in our environment and those spaces, whether it's work, home, um, in relationships, we just accept things as is, right?
Yeah.
And we don't know or deem ourselves worthy of anything better than what it is in that
Yeah.
moment. So what is that thing that you say, or how do you unpack giving yourself permission?
That's a big one because again of what the conditions in which you were subject to. And I had this childhood belief. It sounds so crazy to say out loud, but it's an honest thing I had to undo, that success, especially financial success, was something only for white people. I truly did not believe that Black people had money. I didn't believe Black people were happy. I didn't believe that Black people had happy marriages. I didn't believe that Black people had traditional careers, not warehouse jobs, because that's all I knew. I didn't know until my corporate background was in human resources, and I started negotiating executives or fresh out of college engineers and negotiating salaries. And these are largely white men. And I started to see how unapologetic they were about what they wanted, right? And it was that's what gave me the permission to realize, like, wow, Nesha, look how far you've allowed yourself to go because you've attached yourself to this feeling that you've never been fully honest with yourself, was limiting you about what was possible. Because there was a part of me that felt guilty about removing myself from this narrative of how
Mm-hmm.
I grew up. You
Mm-hmm.
know, very much proud of the way I grew up and what it gave me. But something in me felt a little bit of guilt and shame about removing myself from that. And so, in
Mm.
order to really create permissions for me to think beyond it, there's that saying that says, what got you here won't get you there, right? And that was an honest conversation I had to have with myself, specifically around money and where my subconscious beliefs and worthiness, where did they come from? I grew up in a family that had way more prison sentences than we had college degrees. And we had very few I was the first college graduate. I was the first to go into the military. I was the first to go to another country. I was the first to do so many things that I had no one to look to for so many things. So I was limited in how far I could see myself going, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And
Mm-hmm.
so I also had this attachment of this pride I had of how I am an achiever and I'm a go-getter and I'm someone who's very much going to do the hard stuff and
Yeah.
push and drive. But I struggled to realize that while that got me to a certain extent in life, it didn't actually have to be that hard. I didn't actually have to fight that hard. So again, another permission I had to give myself to say, okay, that got you through this energy, this mentality, this way of doing it got you here. Is that actually going to get you to this next level? Is this really what you want long term, right? And that's what it was. Like I had to really start thinking about where I wanted to be beyond what I could see. I came into 2022 with this prayer because I'm in this season of you have not because you ask not. And my
Mm-hmm.
prayer was, God, please don't allow me to limit what's possible for my life to what my eyes can see and what my hands can touch. And that would require me to think beyond what I've ever deemed possible, right? And that's permission. It's, being humble in a different way, being okay with being vulnerable in a different way, making mistakes. Being someone who's I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm very mindful of how I present. To fumble like this Instagram live, stuff like this. Oh my God, I would be in my head about this,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
Like, that's a permission. Like, Nesha, you are not this. Like, detach yourself from this. What does this say about you? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. It's
Nothing.
just technical difficulty, and it doesn't reflect of who you are, what your
Nothing.
ability is. Yes, absolutely. it's so crazy that you were talking about giving yourself permission. I want to share with you something that happened today with me. So I'm a healthcare IT trainer by day and been in the business for 10 years as a trainer. And I have the number one hospital on my resume, right? So I can almost demand what my hourly rate is as a consultant. And as of recent, they want to, they want to cut the hourly rate down across the board. This is just industry wide. But I had a recruiter call me today, and she says, "Lola, I really saw your resume on LinkedIn, and I love all of your experience, and we would love to have you on this project coming up in November, and it's a 6-month project, and yada 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 yada." And I said, okay, sounds great. And we got down to, I said, well, what exactly is your hourly rate for, this particular position? Mm-hmm. She told me the hourly rate. It was about $10 less than what I make an hour. And I told her, I said, I don't want to be rude or mean. However, that rate that you're talking about is I said, is it negotiable? And she goes, no, it's, the client, they really want to stay right there with this rate. And I went into, I understand there's a statement of work that goes out between client and organization. And I understand it from an administrative side where it's like, yeah, as a consulting firm, you want to take half of what my rate is, even though they might, let's say they pay the consulting firm $100 an hour, but they only want to give you $45 to $50 an hour, and then they take the rest. And it's like, no, I've been in this business too long. I said my work speaks for itself, my expertise and my work ethic. I said, what you're going to get from me that you might not get from newer, trainers is that I know how to troubleshoot on spot. I just started running it down for her. And it was just like, I'm going to give myself permission to ask what I deserve. And she goes, well, Lola, it all sounds great. I might have to go back to the table and ask them, can we give an additional $5 to $10 an hour? That would be wonderful. But if not, madam, I bid you adieu.
Basically, that's it. And that's it. And there's something about that standard. It's the fact that you could say that with a standard in mind, right? Because what happens a lot of time with women and women of color is it's negotiable. There's this like question mark behind this. And then they come back and you're like, oh yeah, I'll go with it. No, like what are you telling the universe about what you expect and your intent of what you want to attract when you're toggling? Like, yeah, you kind of think you want it, but then when you get challenged, when you get incentivized to test to see, is this really what you want? You go it the other way, Can
I be honest? There was a time in my life where I'd be like, I don't know if I want to ask them that. I don't know if I deserve it, or even when I knew I deserved it, but I had a mindset.
Yes.
As you stated before, that deemed myself unworthy of even asking for, the additional monies. I had the resume to show it, but my mindset didn't match what I knew I was worth. My mindset, it was this feeling of guilt. Like, I know I shouldn't be asking them for an additional 5 to 10. How dare me? When our counterparts will go in and ask for $20 more and not even have the resume to back it up. You know what I mean? So I was proud of myself today that I asked for what I deserved and what I'm worth.
With a period at the end. And it's not what you're worth, because I promise you 2 or 3 years from now, you're going to ask for more, right? Like, it's just, that's not your worth. It's just where you feel aligned with right now. That's it. It's not your worth.
Yeah.
It is not your worth. It's just your current alignment. That's it.
Yeah.
It means nothing about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get into something that you posted that I was just like, my mouth was wide open. And I think it's very relevant to this conversation. And you said, on your page, there are 4 things that you must master to become confident. Clarity, you must master knowing who you are and what you desire. Commitment, you must be more committed to your desires than you are your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Congruence, you must occupy the belief that what you desire is for you despite proof. And courage, you must learn to take action towards your desires despite your discomfort. So let's start with clarity, because the reason why this like made my mouth fall open is because when I'm coaching my clients, Black women, you say you must master knowing who you are and what you desire. What I've found in coaching Black women is that a lot of us in our 30s and our 40s still to this very day do not know who we are, what we want, what our needs are, and we're putting it off on our partners to fulfill something for, to satiate, as Will Smith said. He said this one time, you have a partner that satiates our ego deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I screamed. I said, oh my God, this is so crazy. But it's so true. We look to our partners to fill this void in our lives because we haven't gone on this self-discovery, because we've always been in relation to someone else. We've been somebody's daughter, we've been somebody's girlfriend, somebody's partner, somebody's wife, somebody's mom. And all of those things are roles, but we don't know who we are. We don't know what we need, what we want, what we desire. And we're putting it off on other people to tell us or to give us what we think we need. And we don't even know what those things are. How important is clarity? Like
clarity is the foundation of any decision that you make. You mentioned earlier about your beautiful moment of standing firm on something. It's because you were clear. Maybe there was a point in your life, like you said already, that you would have toggled, but maybe you weren't clear on the fact that the outcome, the undesirable outcome on the other side of this decision is one you're going to come back to if you don't stand firm on, we'll talk about commitment, but if you don't stand firm on some agreed upon things about yourself, like your ego, your spirit needs to agree on a few things. Like you need to have a come to Jesus with yourself about all these things. Like it's time for us to get ourselves in check about, our decision making, right? And I think it's a beautiful moment when I really dig deep into where can your unstoppable confidence come from. It's because of that. It's because you can give your name, introduce yourself with a period at the end. It doesn't matter if you have some letters at the end of that. It doesn't matter if you've had some achievements behind that. It's the fact that you know who you are, unfiltered, and why you're here and what your mission is every day. Even if you don't have it all figured out, there is a power in knowing that you're actively working on that. And it's not because you receive that. We're going to talk about obligation and some other things later, but it's not because you inherited that this is what you're here for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's because you actively worked to figure out, what is it that I align with? What is it that I like innately, my unfiltered self? When you remove all of these filters that we have just been receiving, like you said, partnerships, your parents, the school system, my God, and how it pushes this idea of this singular linear way of seeing and viewing yourself. And like, I'm actively undoing that with my kids, but I see it in them, how that starts this story for so many of us. But clarity is powerful because that's your terms and conditions, right? Those are the terms and conditions with yourself that you need to get on board with before you start doing anything next. What are your terms and conditions that you're saying to yourself, like, before we make this commitment, before we sacrifice, before we subject ourselves to any more, because it's going to be hard, it's going to be beautiful, but it's going to suck sometimes, and I'm willing to endure this, however common, what are the terms and those conditions, right? Like, that's what you have to have clarity on. And I just think that's the part that, especially women, we rush through that part, just sitting. Like, there's a stirring that comes when you know your you're ready to make a change and you want to rush through the stirring. And I always know it because what's one of the first things we do when we're ready to, like, we just got out of a relationship and we knew it wasn't aligned with who we are. We just quit a job. We knew it wasn't aligned. It was one of the first things that Black women do. What is one of the first things we do?
We either lose weight or we cut our hair or we do something drastic with our appearance.
On the outside.
Yeah.
And we declare our identity according to that and our transformation according to that. And that holds the weight of the transformation, but it's not the transformation. Right? Like,
that's
it's not.
That's the bar.
It's not, but that's where we go. That's where we go. And we like think that was the work. Now it's time to move from there. No, like, you got to get on those terms and conditions with yourself. That's just a piece of that puzzle. That outside part is all inward, right? That spiritual alignment, that ego, that subconscious, that inner child. What are those terms and conditions before we subject ourselves to this next chapter?
Yes. Yes. That is so good. Oh God. Commitment. You must be committed to your desires then your experiences. I love sharing this because I remember years ago, I asked my dad, this was after I had gone through divorce. I said, Daddy, I always go to my dad for advice. And my dad and my mom have been married 50 plus years, almost 60 years. And I said, Daddy, I know what it takes to get married. I'm being funny, right? I'm being real petty. I know what it takes to get married, but I don't know what it takes to stay married. Right? Yeah. What does it take to stay married? And my dad said to me, and it just hit me. He was like, you have to stay committed to the commitment.
Yep. Period.
And I was like,
it is.
Whoa.
It's a powerful discipline that's within commitment that people don't talk about enough. You know, you referenced Will Smith. There's a YouTube video that I've been listening to for over a decade called Will's Wisdom. And I love it, but he talks about how he and Jada saw their marriage as like divorce wasn't an option, right? And when I got married, my husband and I have been together almost 17 years. We've been married for almost 10. And when I got married, I was not a committed. Like, I'm one of those birds who just don't take kindly to being caged, right? Like, at all. You just can't cage me. Right. And I never thought marriage was going to be for me because I was listening to what everyone else said about it. Everyone. And I realized that one of those reasons I struggle with that is because we do commit to things. You make a commitment day in and day out to things you really don't align with. Yeah. Right? Jobs you don't like, relationships you don't like, food that's not aligned with your goals. You know what I mean? Like, habits that are like, you are committed to outcomes. You're just committed to an outcome you don't want. Right? So I told myself to think, like, what if instead of putting that energy into outcomes that I don't want, I just work at committing to, like you said, the bigger picture that I want. What is it that I really, really want? And how can I make decisions that are aligned with that? And every single time I'm challenged, I remind myself really of the pain points. The pain is that the hard work, the suffering, the sacrifice, the discipline, I have all of that. You are disciplined. You're disciplined with poor habits. You are disciplined with poor minds. Like, all of these things we think we don't have, all of those baselines, you got them. You're just giving them to things that you're not necessarily, right, again, aligning with your terms and conditions of what you actually want, you know? And so that commitment to me, especially around, I love that you even brought up marriage too, because it's one of those things that I think is harder than having 4 kids for me. I just said this to my husband. But if you really work and commit to the work, right, and the healing and the grace and make sure you got the right, like, I don't think everything deserves a commitment. Sometimes you have to be willing to say that I've taken this thing as far as it can go. Right? I think there's that too. I think you have to give yourself permission, but I just think is that it's ultimately realizing that you are committed to something. You're just committed to undesirable results. But what if you channeled your energy and your focus into something you actually want? What would happen if you just committed to the discipline and the habits and the focus for 90 days and that intent, channeling that energy in a positive way, one that's in your control. You know what I mean? Versus something that you have no control over.
Oh man, this is good. Congruence. You must occupy the belief that what you desire is for you despite proof. This is really big in our community because what we do is I'm a big Joe Dispenza fan, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yes.
And he talks about how your thoughts are the language of the brain, and your feelings and your emotions are the language of your body.
Yep.
And our proof has been, or our experience has been, we've had some struggles, we've had some trauma, we've had, some things that might tell us or remind us if we're thinking about the past. Because what happens is you get this ruminating thought, some experience that you've had that hasn't been favorable for you, and you think about it, and that's signaling your brain. Then that's going to signal an emotion in your body that takes you right back to that trauma, right back to this belief that, you know what, I can't do any better than that.
Yep.
Right? But congruence is, you said you got to occupy a belief that what you desire is for you, despite the thought, the feeling, the proof of something otherwise.
Yep.
Talk to us about that.
I'll tell you, of all those, I think that's the one, like you said, is the hardest to really wrap your head around. Every time I say this, I always introduce it with saying that you have to hear this and welcome this. Bob Proctor is my go-to, rest in peace. When he sets the intent that don't seek to disprove what I'm saying. Seek that there's something you can extract from this that there's a possibility that may have some truth in it, right? And that's what when I started to listen to him, I really started to think about that, because knowing what I know generationally about my family, I just reference myself. If I only allow what I said at the beginning of the year, what was possible for me to be limited to what my eyes can see and what my hands can touch, that means that my success is only as far as my proximity, right? Like I can only go as far as my environment, as the people I surround myself with. But what if I figure out the source of all this doubt? What if I get to the source of this? Right. And just really sit with her. And I realize, again, that's that inner child. It's the inner child in me who struggles with something. And she is the reason that I can't see this as a possibility for myself. It's not me. I know otherwise. You have friends, or you have people on LinkedIn, or someone you can connect with to prove you otherwise. I can believe that the method or the success or the income is possible because I see you do it. That doesn't mean I can believe it's possible for me. Right. So that means the work isn't me proving it on the outside, it's me dismantling again on the inside. It's that. And it's one of those things like the fake it till you make it. That's why I don't even believe in that, because that's only going to get you but so far. And then that imposter syndrome, if you don't do the work, imposter syndrome, the idea that this is completely misaligned with what you subconsciously believe is possible for you, is going to disrupt that. And I know from experience, that you are going to self-sabotage every bit of that success. If you don't truly align yourself and believe that it's possible for you. And I think in our community, I have an unpopular opinion, and I think I shared this with you. And I feel like whenever someone's victorious in our community at a level we've never entered, like the first Black X, right? Like let's just reference President Obama. And we celebrate it for him. And we say to ourselves, like, oh, now my kids can see what's possible because they have this, that, and the other. And I take this other approach, which is that when you're the first to do this, you have to be able to occupy a space that's beyond seeing proof that something is possible for you, right? President Trump had no proof that a Black man from Chicago with a crazy name could be the president of this country. He had no reference. And yet he made it a possibility. I am just going to assume because his worthiness was aligned. Like he had to dismantle all the things that made him feel unworthy about this stretch goal, because that's what it was. It's a stretch beyond your conscious, possibilities. It's a stretch beyond what you've ever done. So you have to go deeper to make that
go deeper.
Yeah.
And that's a great example, because when I think about Barack Obama, it's not even just his sense of worthiness. He had to drown out the noise of other people, not just his own inner, unworthiness. Like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm the first to do this. He has to drown out the noise of everybody else that told him that, this is not even possible. Like, I think at one time, I remember listening to an interview that Michelle was like, "Are you serious? Like, are you crazy? Like, can you honestly say that we're going to do?" No, we're not doing this. So imagine the person that you have partnered with looking at you, telling you, this is nuts. This is absolute nuts. So to have that focus, to have that drive and desire,
that vision, that desire, it's powerful, because we're referencing the president, but so often we, in our culture, our community, your audience, my audience, we do this day in and day out. Maybe you were dreaming of being the first person in your family to go to college, and everybody is talking you out of it. Maybe you're thinking of pivoting in your career, right? Maybe you're thinking of quitting maybe you're thinking of going back to school after 20 years and you're 40 something years old or 50 years old. And then you have all these naysayers, all this energy around you. It's like the love-hate relationship of feedback. It's that. It's like, I really believe in teaching people how to trust themselves from a place of intuition, from a place of like just purely knowing this is you and God, right? And in order to do that, you have to teach yourself how to manage all of this. I always say the three things that really limit our success are your ability to manage yourself, manage your mind, and then to manage your excuses, right? And that mind part is a big piece of it. Is how do you have a process that may seek some level of feedback without it, triggering you? How do you do that? You have to learn that, and that sometimes isn't learned from a place of confidence, or like, how to extract it without it triggering your doubt. You really have to just go through it sometimes and have the right person in your ear to guide you through that.
A lot of times it's the boldness.
Yes,
thing that we're talking about, being bold. Like, when you're a visionary, you have to be bold. You have to make bold decisions, because a lot of times everybody is not going to go with you. Everybody's not going to think about, like, when I started doing Heal Black Joy, I mean, I had people like, "Oh, that's cute," that you're getting online and you're going to talk.
Your cute little business. Your cute little business.
First of all, when I started Heal Black Joy, it was about me just putting up content. I wasn't getting online to talk to anybody about anything, right? I was very confident in my ability to create content, because I do that on a daily basis, and I could just put the content out. Like, just posting things that have pretty fonts and, words. I'm a wordsmith, so I can do that all day with my eyes closed. But to get on and talk to people and come up with topics and all these things where it grew legs and it's kind of just morphed into something else, I was just bold enough to do it. Like, my girlfriend said, "You need to do this every week." She was like, "Let's get online and talk."
Yep.
And her telling me, sometimes you got to have people, alignment is key, man. Who you are in alignment with, alignment with your thoughts, your mindset has to be right. And just being bold in that. Like, my girlfriend was like, "You need to do this." I'm like, "Do what?" She's like, "Get on and talk." I'm like, "For what?" And she just kind of like told me. But in her alignment and her expertise as a TV producer, I knew and I trusted her, but I also trusted myself. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what it was going to be. Me reaching out to you, not knowing you on social media, there has to be a sense of boldness there that says, "Hey, I like this lady's information. I like her content. She's a beautiful Black sister. I'm reaching out to her." That's not my normal thing.
I love that so much. And I know your audience knows your backstory, but I remember when we initially connected and you were talking, we had a shared kind of divine intervention in our lives about what we should do next. And that's a part of that too. That alignment is in order for you to, like, you are a vessel and you have to really make sure that vessel is as clear as possible. It can't be blocked. Like all these things that you're surrounding yourself with is blocking this vessel. And so, yeah, maybe you get these little sparks of God and divine intervention in your life, but what can you do to remove the blockage? So it's a pure, unfiltered, flowing vessel. And I call that a divine download is what I call, like when you have these moments that you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, but you just know you absolutely have to do it,
You absolutely have to do it. And that's why, like, when you're talking about that clarity, I got to go back to clarity because it's relevant to what you're saying. Knowing who you are, knowing your purpose. When you're talking about that divine download from God and you know what your purpose is, and there's these outside noise. It's like, hey, let's go to dinner. Hey, you need to be doing this. Hey, let's go on vacation. Hey, you're in a relationship. You got business. You got job. You got family, you got all these obligations, and it's like, nope, I got to drown out all of this noise. I got to be very, very clear about who I am, what my purpose is, what God wants from me, what I'm supposed to present, to the world as a vessel. You don't have time to be focusing on all this outside noise or outside what my girlfriend calls side fires.
Oh, yeah.
On this road, and there's these side fires going on, and it's like everything's popping up, but you got to be focused on that channel to hear from God, to be able to commune with God, to be able to talk to God.
Absolutely.
Just like, go forward.
And you just said the three things that I think people overlook, like we keep talking about, they rush through this piece, is vision, standards, and boundaries. Hands down. Like, if I tell you, I know so many people who know their vision. They have a vision for themselves. They feel convicted. They feel like they have a divine assignment, but they have no standards. They have no standards, or they have no boundaries to protect that time. I'm a mom of 4 who just went full-time entrepreneur recently. My kids are under 8, right? I could not do half the things that I do if I didn't have boundaries that protected my time, my energy, my money. I would love to go on the vacation. I would love to, but in this season, this is focus season, right?
Right. How I'm glad you mentioned you being a mom of 4 under the age of 8, because there are a lot of women, they're like, in talking to me, they're like, Lola, I would love to take a class, or I would love to be a client, or I would love to do X, Y, and Z. I would love to start a business. I would love to pivot in my career, but I have these children and I have this husband and I have this, and although I want to empathize and sympathize with them, it's like when you see somebody like yourself who has 4 children under the age of 8, you're a wife, you have a business, you have all these things going on. How do you find the time to do it? It's like you have to have boundaries. You have to have focus.
You have to.
What do you say to that woman that says, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do that. I don't have a blueprint.
I think that goes right back to what we just talked about earlier, is the commitment. Because what I hear when people tell me that is you're more committed to this narrative.
Woo!
Right? Like, I think you're more committed to this narrative you're telling yourself of why you can't do anything than you are to the possibility of what you could be if you release the narrative. That's all I hear.
Self-sabotage.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. You're more committed to this story, because it's a lie, and I can blow it up with anybody. And I dare you to give me an opportunity to blow it up, because I can show you how to be more efficient with the right boundaries and standards in your life. That's it.
Let me be totally transparent with you. Okay. My self-sabotage is always when I get opportunity, right? Let's say, the podcasting thing, or somebody's like, Lola, I want you to speak somewhere, which has been coming up lately. And I'm coaching and I'm getting more clients. I'm talking to my best friend, and my go-to is, I am so overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right? I will tell myself and I will declare that I am overwhelmed. And she will say to me, Lola, you are not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You're not overwhelmed. What do you, she will literally say, okay, Lola, sit down with yourself and decide today for 2 or 3 hours, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
That's it.
That's it. Right?
That's it.
Don't ever tell yourself again that you're overwhelmed.
That's it.
Just sit down, have some time management skills, use your time management skills, put them to work.
It's powerful. I'll tell you, like I said, my own journey was somebody who was a procrastinator, someone who struggled with follow through, someone who lacked discipline, even being in the military. And if you weren't dragging me, kicking and screaming, I wasn't doing it, right? Like I didn't have the initiative to do things on my own. And like I said, I realized it wasn't serving me, and I realized it was hurting me, right? But there are these things like now. Let me tell you the simple mindset shift I had to adopt, Lola, maybe this will help you too. This is one I just gave myself recently, which is that because I've been a corporate employee for all this time that I've built anything, I'm still acting like this is a side hustle. I'm like, I still have this side hustle mindset in the fact that like you are the CEO of this business. That means if you feel overwhelmed, you get to choose what you want to do today. You get to choose if you need to take a break. You get to choose what hours of the day you want to protect. You get to choose the types of clients you want to work with. You get to choose the type of work you want to do. You don't have to say yes to everything. And if you think you need to say yes to everything, that's desperate energy. What is that saying about what you think is possible for what you are doing, right? So it's like, I just gave myself this permission to I have to sit in when I realize I'm in these moments, where is this coming from? And what permission needs to exist for me to move past it? And so I have a couple of boundaries that I have in place because I'm a morning person. But I hate like 2 to 5 p.m. I hated it in the corporate world. And I was pushing through and taking client calls and all this stuff. And my conversions were kind of low. And I'm like, God, I'm just beating myself up. And I'm like, Nesha, who told you that you had to take calls from 2 to 5? Who told you that? Who? This is your business. And you acting once again like this is a side hustle. Right? That's a mindset shift that I needed to do. I needed to give myself this permission. The idea that I started to, so I'll do a lot of walking, talking content, a lot of content I have on my podcast. My kids are in the background. And I say that because I want people to see me in my life, because how I show up on video is how I am when you work with me. That means that if you're someone who's going to be triggered by the fact that I'm not put together, I'm not buttoned up, despite where my professional experiences may be, I'm very much a person who's just like going to push through. If it's 80% done, it's good enough for me. Otherwise, I'm going to overthink it. I didn't give myself these permissions. But the most powerful thing that I did, and I posted this, is this tactic I have called one goal, one thing. And what it is when I feel that overwhelmed, I decide what's one goal that I want to accomplish. If I do this one goal, if I accomplish this one goal today, I would feel like I can take a break. I can go to the gym or do whatever. And what's the one thing I can do to drive that goal? Like the path of least resistance, right? More often than not, that's some type of outreach or some type of sales or something like that that's going to move the needle. But I live by incremental increase. Darren Hardy and his compound effect principle. But one goal, one thing. That's the most efficient way that I run my life these days. One goal, one thing, and stay as lean as possible in my decision making around that.
Yeah, I love it. We got to get to this courage. You must learn to take action toward your desires despite your discomfort. And I think we've kind of talked about that, but what does that look like despite your discomfort? Because I think a lot of times people don't want to push past their discomfort. People will sit and waddle in this discomfort, like the discomfort is the thing that's gonna get them out of it. It's like, no, you got to take action.
You do.
I had this guy tell me the other day, he was like, he said, what did he say about opportunity? He was like, you've got to take action on opportunity or it goes to the next person.
Speed wins.
Speed wins. Yeah, he was talking about, I can't remember exactly the wording, but he was talking about, he was like, you have to take action and put speed to the action for the opportunity, or it goes to the next person.
It sure does. Yep. You sure does. And I know you hear this. I know you hear this. The most common thing I hear of someone when they say they have this conviction or this vision about how their life should be, they always say, but I don't have the courage to do it, or I don't have the confidence to do it. And it's the most common reason I hear. And it's like the math that they think is that the courage is the first step you got to have, and then you do the thing. I know otherwise, where the courage is the result of the action. If you manage to push through the excuses and the objections and the life and the obstacles and get to the other side of that, there's your courage waiting for you with open arms, right? But so often, and it's like you always hear the excuse of, well, I don't like change. It's just like I'm very intolerant when it comes to excuses. You can probably hear this in how I speak, but I'm very intolerant because I'm like, if I can figure this out, someone who comes from my environment, someone who has 4 kids and no help, I'm married, extra married, I do all the things on my own by myself, and I pull myself sometimes, which I don't always love that energy, but at the end of the day, I know what I want. And I also know if I don't do that, I'm also creating activity. I'm also creating results, but they're not results I'm aligned with. Right. And I think that's what people think. It's like they talk about, I want to start this job, I want to start this business, but I don't have the courage. And then they go through this, I hate my manager, it's so toxic, it's so this. I'm like, well, okay, I get this. This is the narrative you're more committed to. But let's sit in that for a little bit. Tell me how 1 year from now, absolutely, 1 year from now, if you keep up with this path because you think you don't have the courage to push through it, what type of results will you have, right? I think some people just don't realize that whether you take action toward the thing you want or not, you're still producing results. They're just not, they're just undesirable. They're not aligned with what you want. And it gives you your power away. You know what I mean? Like it releases your power. It takes you out of the driver's seat. There's no intent behind that. Right. It just happens. You're at the mercy of your decisions. Right. And I want you to get back in power. I want you to take the driver's seat. I want you to see that you have control over these outcomes. Like you don't have to wait on life to happen for you, for the things you dream of. You can make it so that these things come to you every day if you want them to. These people you wish supported you, these opportunities to show up, to work with people who love you and value you and nurture you. You know what I mean? Like there is room for this. There's an abundance in your life that exists if you choose to just push through your excuses. That's it. Just push through and just see what happens. And then when it gets a little hard, remember why you got to do it. Remember why it hurts. Why does it hurt you? And where are you going to be a year from now if you don't figure out how to overcome that excuse? You know what I mean? Like courage is one of those things. It's the most common excuse I hear, and it's like I said, I have a very low tolerance for it because it's there's just so many narratives there that need to be disarmed. And people they push through that part.
Right. I think this is a good segue place. How I came about finding you. You put up this content about 6 reasons why you can't make decisions without second guessing yourself. And we've kind of touched on some of these things, but I wanted to bring up the 6 reasons why we second guess we make bad decisions, or we can't make decisions without second guessing ourselves. That's fear, uncertainty, obligation, guilt, habits, and doubt. I know we've talked about habits. I know we've talked about doubt. Let's talk about guilt and obligation. Let's talk about those 2 things in particular, because I know when people are trying to make decisions to pivot, right, to get out of jobs that are not serving them, to get out of relationships that are not serving them, to sometimes disassociate from environment, spaces, family members, things that they have this obligation to.
Hold on them.
Oh my God. They have this obligation to, and they also have this guilt factor like, it's my mama.
Yeah.
It's my daddy. Yeah. It's my sister. It's my great grandma. Everybody that's, brought you to this point. But those ideologies, those beliefs, those things that you grew up in are not necessarily serving you in your adulthood and the things and the mindset that you need
Yep.
to progress forward. But you have this guilt, this obligation that's holding you back, that's anchoring you, and it has you teeter-tottering where you're second guessing yourself. Can we talk about guilt and obligation?
We can, and I'll be as quick as I can with it. And I think about guilt a lot when I think of energy behind your decision making. Like, I had someone who, there was an event, someone who I kind of have a relationship with, but I kind of don't, right? Kind of care for them, kind of don't. I want to support this individual. I'm kind of getting pressured to support this individual. And I'm thinking about going to this event, but ultimately decided to change my mind about it and not go, because I knew the energy behind it wasn't one that was to uplift her, to support her, to empower her, to celebrate her. The energy behind my decision to say yes to that was guilt. It was pressure, right? It was like, how would I feel if somebody knew the reason I really didn't want to go to this event, right? And I think about the energy that goes behind your decisions when we feel guilty about doing something, like we feel pressured into doing it. Think of the energy you're putting into that, which is ultimately the energy that's going on the other side of it and coming right back to you, right? Like, I think about that a lot. Mom guilt. Let's talk about that. Mom guilt is a big thing. I don't struggle with it, but I know a lot of moms who do. And I think of mom guilt as a lot of times it's something within ourselves that we are insecure about, or something subconsciously, and we're imposing it. We're imposing it, and again, projecting this energy behind the action onto someone else. And that isn't putting you in control of your energy. And if you want to protect your energy, you need to protect how you project your energy too, right? And so, like, I just think guilt is one of those things, people pleasers who don't believe that they can make a decision without hurting someone else's feelings. And it's like, ultimately, really, do you think these people are thinking anything about your decision? Perfectionists. You know, I had a call with someone earlier today who was just in her head about the colors on her website. I'm like, do you really get feedback from people about the colors of your feedback? And it's like, they just really don't. If you just sit with that for a second and think of either the energy behind why you're doing it, the reason behind why you feel the energy, you know, I guarantee you it's from some level of inner child that told you you had to show up this way. You know what I mean? I guarantee you it's from there. And then when you think about, what did we talk about? We said guilt, and the other one we didn't talk about was obligation. And that's going right back to the same thing. It's the idea. I'm a big sister and I'm the oldest sister. And I think there are some, you receive and accept some ideas about how you're supposed to present to the world when you're a big sister, when you're the oldest, right? That a lot of people, you don't realize how much that shows up in your life about you have no choice. You have to be the example. You have to be perfect. You are going to set the tone. You're going to set the standard. And it puts you in this box that you never even realize you were in. Yeah, you know what I mean? So you think about it in that way, or you think about in your corporate world. I had an opportunity to talk to someone not too long ago, and she was talking about how she was ready to pivot in her career, but she couldn't dream outside the box and the parameters of her career, but she felt guilty about even asking about what else she could do. And I'm like, you feel obligated because this is as far as your organization can go. There's nothing wrong with being grateful for the people and the opportunities that got you here. There's nothing wrong with releasing that with gratitude. Like Marie Kondo, you know her from Netflix. I love how she approaches clutter in clothing, but I think it's also pretty
applies to
life.
Yes, it does.
Right? Like, it's relevant that you can release things and let experiences and people go with gratitude and love. And not harm them. It's just that season, and that the experience of serving one another is no longer there. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I don't know why we're so hung up on things like this, except we're attached to it.
Yeah, I love how you say that. I actually had a situation about a month ago where one of my colleagues and I, you know, we aligned, you know, when it came to our job, but we had some personal things and we got together, and she came into, you know, Atlanta, and we, you know, got together a little bit. And then one day she just said some things that were not in alignment with my beliefs and what what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. And I just kind of told her, I was like, hey, what you're saying that's cool for you, not necessarily so cool for me, doesn't align with what I'm doing, but I'm not mad at you. That's your thing. You go with grace and Godspeed to you. And she sent me this message like she was so trying to attach herself to something that wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it was just like, no, I understand what you're saying. That it's not necessarily a sisterhood, but we're not in alignment.
Yeah. And that goes back to those standards. You
And
knew
it's
that.
okay.
That triggered your misalignment because you knew the standards you set for the relationship you were willing to have.
Yeah.
Right? You challenge your standard.
Yeah. And it's like, but she couldn't wrap her mind around me saying it's okay, because she thought because I wasn't in alignment with her, that equated to I was mad with her.
Correct.
And it's like, my dear, I'm not mad at you. I'm not angry with you. There is no love lost. However, we're just not in alignment, and it's okay. And I bid you Godspeed.
And that's it.
And that's it.
And that's it.
A lot of times people don't understand that you can disconnect from people, places, and things that don't serve you in your alignment, and you can wish them the best with gratitude, and it's okay.
Or even as business owners, one of the things, Lola, that I've started to do also is realize when I am not aligned with someone, right? And giving them permission to say, I often introduce anything that I do with saying, this is a low pressure situation. There is no pressure here. This is no obligation. And I give them the out because I see that I am not who you need. I know I offer a lot of value. I know my worth, but I don't think we are a fit. We are a match. And I think as entrepreneurs, that's where that confidence and knowing you're not meant to be for everyone.
Yes.
Right? Like you have to give yourself permission to say that too, not just people who can help you, but the people you are meant to serve and help. You're not meant to serve and help everybody. You have to be okay with saying that.
Exactly. I want to touch on this before we get off, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and I know when I coach, this is one of the things that I address in my coaching group, and that's inner child. Doing that work about your inner child. How important is it for us to address those inner child wounds in our adult life? Because I always say this when people ask me this question, I say we show up as our unhealed self.
Always.
Whatever that is, that's how you show up. That's how you communicate with people. That's where your triggers lie.
Yeah.
Any communication that you have with people, even if you haven't healed something from your childhood, you are showing up in that space of when you were that child. And your response or your reaction to whatever this action is that you're up against is showing up as this inner child. Tell the people how important it is to go back and dig in and get to the root of a thing in that inner child wound, that inner child trauma. How important is that?
I think it was so easy for me to see this with my members of my family who, I have a number of Black men in my family who went to prison, and they were in fatherless homes, or their fathers went to prisons, or they were killed. And it was so easy for me to connect an unhealed child to an unhealed adult with them because it was so obviously traumatic. It wasn't so easy for me to see that in myself. So for me, where a lot of people talk about like manifestation and subconscious belief is woo-woo, I thought inner child healing was woo-woo for someone like me, because I'm like, I'm good. Like I'm creating results I like, you know what I mean? Like we good in here, you know what I mean? And I never thought that I had some healing to do with myself until I started to realize why I would create friction in ways that they just didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like when I would have this desperate energy for validation, like where the heck did this come from? You know what I mean? It's just like out of nowhere, just like this divine download. It was just like this, like bubbled up random trigger. And I'm like, why did I just get triggered like this? And I really, like I said, I just really started to sit with myself and talk to God. And I was talking, and all I kept saying was like, God, I get so close to these massive goals and breakthroughs that I want. I get so close, but they never happen. I'm disciplined, I'm focused, I do the work, I give good energy. I do like what is it, right? And I started a meditative, I'm lying, it was a Reiki. I was exploring some things and I went to a Reiki session. You ever done Reiki before?
Yeah, yes, I have.
Amazing. But God, it's incredibly difficult if you're already someone who stays in your head, and I'm always in my head.
Me too.
And it took so long. And in that Reiki session, that's when I heard, you know, you got to work on healing, Nesha. And I'm like, healing what? Like, I'm good. Me and my mom working through our stuff. I'm working through my like, what are you talking about? And it's like, your inner child felt invisible because she felt like she had no choice but to let everyone else around her take the light. So she had to sit in the back. She had no choice but to accept that what she needs isn't big enough. Like what she wants isn't big enough to command the light, to get in the light for the attention and the love and the support that you so desperately wanted as a child. So when I would have these random, like out of nowhere moments of validation, I'm like, who is this? Because this ain't me, right? And I realized it's her. It's her. And I had to hold space for her. I talk a lot about the fact that I fight for two people more than I fight for anybody else. And they're not my kids. They're not my husband. And not my parents. It is my future self and my inner child. Yes. And I hold a flame so hard for her because I did some breath work recently. And in that breath work session, and again, this stuff is woo-woo for me at one point. This wasn't how I navigate until I realized I had to do some healing. And in this breath work, my guide, she gave me a word that I realized that I needed. And I literally broke down crying in that moment. And she said, I got you. You are safe. Those 3 words, I have you, you are safe. And I just broke. And I'm like, there it is. That's the inner child who felt like she had no choice but to stop crying, to figure it out, to be silent, to get in the background, that she wasn't allowed because her what she was going through wasn't as big as everybody else's. It wasn't as loud. It wasn't as obvious. So no one checked on me. And it's one of those things where, like, I know you resonate with this, by default, the way I present it as an adult of this unhealed child is being the strong one in life, right? And it's like backhand compliment when people would say to you as a strong one, like, oh, you're that friend we don't ever have to worry about. Nobody checks on you, Nesha. You know? But it's because that's that unhealed child response, right? And so I think it's a powerful thing because it will bubble up in the most inconvenient moments, showing what you need. And you just gotta hold space for her, hold space or for him. And ultimately, you have to, because no one else will. No one protected that child. No one saw that child. No one gave love to that child. So you, as an adult, now need to do that for her.
Absolutely. I think it's so important. Like, I love that you're talking about the modalities that you're using, breath work, Reiki, things that are not necessarily, I think people are becoming more aware of other modalities or things that they can utilize to heal trauma. Yes, we love going to church. Yes, we love to pray, but sometimes it requires you, especially if you've dealt with extreme trauma, it requires you to do some things that are different, right? Regardless of just, we love our spiritual walk and our spiritual life. However, there's some things that you might have to adapt or open your mind to that's outside of the norm of what you're used to doing. Because if those things are not working, you just going to church every Sunday and you just praying. Sometimes you need a little extra. You need something else that will jolt your system or change that pattern of behavior so that you don't show up as that unhealed person.
It's so funny you say that because it makes me think about like how distracting sometimes it can be, these other ways of doing things, because sometimes it can be a distraction to constantly just be talking about the problem, where in fact the answer is within the issue. So if you just sit with the issue long enough with yourself, you're going to find it, you know, in this unfiltered way. And that to me is what Reiki and meditation did. That's what all these, like, sitting with yourself.
Meditation definitely did that for me, because I'm a person, like you said, I'm constantly thinking. My mind is going at all times, all speeds, all day long. So I was never giving my brain a break.
Ever.
Right? Even when I first started meditating, I'd be laying there and my mind would just go, okay, what am I going to cook for dinner? What I got to do, da, 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 da. And I'm glad that I had guided meditation, because it's like, it's okay. Bring yourself back to center, where you can just like sit there with yourself and just be like, okay, refocus, Lola, refocus. Until I got into the practice of and doing it every single day, my mind would wander. My mind would wander, because we have been taught to just be busy, do things, not be productive, be busy.
Yeah.
We always are doing stuff. We don't ever sit with ourselves,
solving for things, fixing things, all of that. Yeah, always. Because you think that's what you're supposed to do when you feel so anxious or like disrupted. You're supposed to just fix it. And sometimes it's just sitting with it. You just have to sit with it long enough, because you will hear what you need. If you give it time, you will hear the answer. Right? Especially if it's from an inner child. That inner child's voice will come up. It will bubble up if you just remove the blockage and have an unfiltered experience with yourself. Just sit there long enough. It's such a spiritual alignment. You know, that's the power of, once again, the clarity of who you are, and that confidence and the courage to think that no matter what decision I make in my life, no matter what way I present, I am so good with me. You know what I mean? Like, I give myself flowers now. I didn't do that before. I hold space for myself. When someone gives me a compliment now, and I'm like, you know, you'll naturally say it to other people, like, "Oh, girl, you too," or "Oh, I just love this about you," and trying to change. Now I'm like, no, I received that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm learning to hold space for myself in a way I've never done it before, because I realized how much I needed to be seen and heard, and I was forcing that away and pushing that away because I didn't feel aligned with it. I didn't feel like I was worthy to be seen or heard or recognized, you know?
I totally relate to that. I think us in our community, my girlfriend said on our very first show that I ever did, it was about resting, about the self-preservation of Black women. And like you said tonight, giving yourself permission, right? We've got to give ourselves permission to rest and to be still. We don't give ourselves permission to rest, because rest is our birthright. She said that. My girlfriend Sarah said, rest is our birthright. We don't think that it is, but it is.
It is.
It is.
And sometimes you have to, you're a coach, and I know you understand what I mean when I say sometimes you have to attach yourself to someone else's belief system or someone else's confidence, because you don't see that in yourself. And that was how that birthright mentality, that the word I used at that time was entitlement, but like that entitlement to these things, that's how I learned it. I have this, I put all of this around money, because money was really my trigger. Spending money, earning money, all the things around money was my trigger. And I ultimately like, okay, Nesha doesn't have a foundation that is going to help us to be successful with money in any capacity. So whose belief around money do I need to adopt? Right.
Good. That's good.
And so I have one, my money mindset. His name is Jimmy. He's a 55-year-old white man who's retired. He has multiple streams of income. He has properties all over the world. He's already paid for vacations and college for his grandchildren. Jimmy is who I align myself in my decision-making with money all the times, because he doesn't have to give himself permission around these things. They are a birthright to him, because he's comfortable. This is all he's known.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I've started to kind of give myself these little egos who I can, and not just real people, I just make them up. And I think from that place. You remember those "What would Jesus do" bracelets?
What would Jimmy do?
What would Jimmy do? That's literally what I respond to. I said, what would Jimmy do? What would Jimmy do? Jimmy was spending money because he knows it's coming back, because he knows it's an investment on him. I just hired a housekeeper not too long ago, and I struggled with that for a long time and thinking I was worthy of having help as a mom. Like, what does it say about me if I can't maintain my own household? Nesha, Jimmy would hire help because Jimmy knows that gives him more time to make more money, more time to vacation, more time to rest, because that's his birthright, right? And so you have to really lean in and stand in these beliefs, even if they're not your own, until you align with them. You just gotta, so you can move forward.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you have adapted this tool where you have a representation, even if you didn't have that belief, that Jimmy has that belief, and you can latch on to Jimmy's belief until you develop
Exactly
that belief for yourself.
And eventually I catch on, and I do, because I reap the results of Jimmy's decisions. You know what I mean? Like, I get the outcomes of it. So eventually I catch up.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I love this conversation. I want to say to you, I told people last week, I announced that I'm changing the name of the podcast to not just Heal Black Joy, because I want to kind of separate Heal Black Joy from the podcast itself, but it's Heal Black Joy presents Soul Food and War. And my thought process on it is, somebody asked me in a session on Clubhouse, Lola, what does your healing journey look like? And I said, sometimes it feels like soul food and sometimes it feels like war, right? And I meant that in the sense that we know what soul food feels like to us in our community, right? It's this warmth, even though it came out of a space where we created soul food from scraps in slavery. But for us, it represents, on a Sunday afternoon, it represents this communal, get together, feel good, yummy feeling. However, there have been those valley moments in my life where it felt like I was at war, where I became brave, and my bravery and my boldness gave me the confidence to keep going and go on, right? So when you think about soul food and war, can you think of a time that feels like soul food, and can you think of a time that felt like war? What would those things be for you?
That's beautiful. I think the soul food, gosh, I have to say they're one and the same to an extent for me, about the experiences, the thing that I would do that creates one or the other. And I think it has to be this reflection process I have with healing, because my former self, which I'm still toggling, can be so critical. I know how important it was to review. We still have this corporate mindset, right? Like, you look at the data, you do the postmortems, you debrief yourself. So every time I would set a goal for myself, and I would go back and review it and look at the metrics I established for that goal, this very like male energy way of approaching it, I would have this soul food moment sometimes, because gosh, you did the consistency, you showed up. And then it'd be this war, because I'm like, but did you though? But did you do enough? Was it like, you know what I mean? And like, I had to realize how to practice more self-compassion with these experiences that I was creating for myself, because I'm just so incredibly critical of like, the most toxic relationship in my life is my own, myself sometimes. And I think is that I can uplift myself when I'm doing things in a way that feels so warm and fuzzy. And then I can break myself down in a way that's just like tormenting, And it's they feel like two, and they feel like two very different people. And learning how to navigate that in a healthy, compassionate, considerate way, you know what I mean? That's very mindful of how you feel. Because like you introduced at the beginning of this, I believe success is a self-love journey, and you don't have to hurt yourself in the process to achieve outcomes. You don't have to hurt yourself. And now I was doing that. I was definitely doing that to myself.
Oh my God. I love how you said that, because when I think about war, especially when I'm talking to my clients, I said a lot of times war doesn't have anything to do with anybody or it's not an external thing. Most times the war that we have is the war within our own self.
Always. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that. Yeah.
And most times when you are having an external war with somebody, it's still because you're having an internal war with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, battle versus a war. It is. These little things are just battles usually. You're outside, going right back to what I said about standards, because I guarantee you can connect this. What are
Yeah,
you giving permission to in these battles? Like, you know what I mean? You want to complain about your friends who aren't worth anything. You know, they don't support you. They're critical of you. What standard do you have about friends then? What value do you bring in your friendships, right? Like, it goes right back to that.
it goes back to that clarity thing too. Who are you? What do
Yeah.
you need? What do you want? If you don't know who you are, you can't even communicate effectively
Mhm.
what you need outside of yourself because you don't even know yourself.
You don't know yourself. You don't know yourself. And I think it's as a leader, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, you are a leader in any capacity of life. I say this all the time, whether it's a multi-billion-dollar organization or you're a stay-at-home mom, you are a leader,
Yes.
right? You are a leader. And I think it's very dangerous to navigate and have influence. And by leadership, I mean that you have the ability to influence others and to drive results. You have that ability in almost
Yeah.
any capacity of life. I think it's very dangerous to have that power and have no clue who you really are and how powerful what you're putting out there in front of these people can be. The decisions you're making, the energy behind the decisions you're imposing. Like, I just think it's dangerous and it's destructive, and
Yeah.
it's just counterproductive for a lot of people. And I just wish more people saw that. I just wish they saw it.
I do too. I think I am so full right now because of the conversation that we've had. I love the way your brain ticks. I'm a person
Mm,
that is very excited about and very intentional about my alignment with others, whether it's in business, relationships, whatever it is. And it's just kind of it makes me smile on the inside when I can showcase and bring folk to the fold that have similar thought processes about life, about our community, about
yeah,
helping our community and what we're trying to do to push that needle forward so that we can get to greater manifestation in our life, greater joy, greater love, greater peace, right? The things that we desire. So this conversation has been fruitful, it's been expansive, it's been sister girl, it's been yummy, yummy, yummy for
mm.
me. What are you working on? What can we connect with you on? What do we need to tune in for with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That means so much because we connected and talked about this just natural energy that we have, and especially from the inside out
Yeah.
approach we have in life. But I'm just grateful to be able to share this, and I hope that that message can be received from anyone. You can find me on Instagram, a brand new Instagram account that I'm growing at Courage Hackers. I work with entrepreneurs, small business owners who want to market themselves in a way that doesn't feel out of alignment. Maybe you're not looking for paid ads, you're looking for more organic marketing, but you really have no clue what you want, how that aligns with your life and your lifestyle. And that's a lot of what I work with. And I'm working on a beta program with that. If that's something you're interested in, you're more than welcome to DM me there. But otherwise, just find me on LinkedIn or at Instagram, and I'm more than happy to talk through today's points, or if there's something that's leading, distracting you, and you're just like, how just this one thing I can't seem to overcome. I'd love to just connect with you and see if I can be a voice for you to dream a
Yeah.
little bit bigger than that.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your expertise with us. Just the way you think about how we approach things, how we approach courage, how we approach being confident, understanding your story and your journey, and knowing that, you look like me. I look like you. We are the same, right? I have these conversations. I have these sit down conversations with people that look like us because I want the representation, our content to represent folk that are trying to push this needle forward. And whoever's watching, there is a mother, there's
Yeah.
a wife, there's a woman, there's a brother out there that has had the same story, and they don't know how to navigate their way out of whatever it is that they're struggling with. maybe in quicksand at their job.
Yeah.
It might be quicksand in their relationships. They might feel guilt about, leaving some family members behind or leaving some friends behind or feeling like there's this obligation to this block, right? There might be some guilt there, but just having this conversation makes them think about things a little bit different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing what you think about courage and what you think about confidence and how to be bold, be brave, and be confident in these spaces, relationships, work, entrepreneurship. I just thank you.
I thank you. Your light is so bright, Lula, and I hope you see that and receive every bit of that. You were just, I would never, I know you do it professionally, but I would never believe that you haven't been doing this as long as you say. I would definitely challenge you there because your light is so bright. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Whatever you need, my dear, whatever you're working on, you let me know. Just know that, I'm your sister in this work, and whatever you need from me, I'm there. You just let me know.
Absolutely. I love that. All right. Thank you again. It's lovely.
Thank you. Thank you to all the Heal Black Joy tribe that is tuned in on tonight. Always remember to heal Black joy, and always understand and acknowledge and honor that there's soul food and there's war, and you want to honor all of those experiences in your life and everything in between. Thank you guys, and have a good night.